This is a journey. This is a journey.
Look, if you had one shot.
And just a nice little picture of W. Bush there. And if you thought, hey, well, the Freemasons aren't really involved in our government, well, here he is right there, and I guess he's in the White House or some government official building signing some kind of, I don't know, loyalties maybe. Could they be conspiring or working together, united in some effort? And then there's some real foul things too, as far as why they wear aprons, and so forth. But we'll look into that a little bit as we go. So we're looking at now. I want to change gears a little bit here because, when you think of the Freemasons, the secret societies, and they have very often their own symbolism, their own logos and stuff like that. And I think of the Tower of Babel and how stuff like that actually started. Now, some of these are some obvious ones. The handicap picture there. The maybe what's the wastebasket, the no U-turn here. They just common signs and or symbols that we can associate with. And really we need to understand a lot of this and the power of symbolism. This is something that I think a lot of people don't understand. Okay, but we're going to look at that a little bit more and realize that remember that at the Tower of Babel, their language was confused. So they had to find other ways to kind of work together eventually. And you could end up eventually learning another language. But any of you that know about that know that that's not an easy thing to do. That takes time and effort, immersion, all kinds of different things. But these in this case, I'm using the example of these Freemasons. They actually have a way of communicating, through handshakes that says something like these ones right here that I put. This communicates their level or their degree, depending on how they shake hands. Like it says, a grip of an entered apprentice, the apprentice to pass the grip of a fellow craft, the fellow craft grip, the master mason grip. What's the other one? The lion's paw. And these are all different status within their ranks. So you would think, well, why do they got to do that? Well, because they, why can't they come out right and say something out like, hey, are you I guess a master mason or a lion's paw or whatever? What degree are you? And they don't say it because with every degree, there's some other element of secrecy and loyalty and ritual that they go through. And that's part of their initiation into it. But in a general sense, keeping a secret like that is basically allowing the enemy to have a place in your life. If there's any of you that have been part of the Freemasons, my advice is that you get out of there entirely. A lot of people, I think, get into it for business contacts and associations, but you don't realize what you are a part of and what you've taken an oath to. You better start realizing it. It's pretty bad. Okay. Now there's this regular like sign language, and this is the alphabet and sign language and stuff, and we see that. I'm just pointing out some things like, hey, one of the biggest things that has gotten in the way of the enemy being able to accomplish his goal is the same thing that happened in the beginning. There, the language needs to be communicated for them to do these things. And they can't do it always in the open. They do some things in the open because they have to in order to gain the authority, which we went through earlier. But a lot of these things they can't do openly. Like they can't let you know what they're doing, even if they have to let you know what their plans are. Okay. Because it's one thing to know, okay, their plan is to take over the world, for example, and you might not think twice about that. But if they're communicating, we're going to start it by doing this on your particular street, now you can do something about it. So they try not to be too obvious in what they're doing. Okay. So here's some other signs, or rather symbols, that have secret meanings. You see this one over here. That's the Mason meaning. This is the yin and the yang, and this one's the tri something or other. I think Kobe doesn't use that one. But then you got the pentagram. Both used this way and upside down for like the Baphomet or satanic symbol. You got the Eye of Horus used in multiple ways. Also the pyramids, those are used consistently. Here's another Eye of Horus up here. A lot of people don't see this. So swastikas is popular. We know that one, what that represents. But a lot of these other ones seem a little bit more common, and we don't really, think much on them. The cross, there's numerous kinds of crosses as well. The hammer and the sickle. Okay. Point is, all these symbols have meaning. They don't just make them up because they look, cool or something like that. They mean something, and very often they have even more than one meaning. Okay. And, I have mentioned in one of the earlier episodes what it was that got me started, on this path to all this revelation, of Mystery Babylon. I couldn't define it like that back then when I first started, of course. But the actual thing was the architecture. I had made mention of it, of traveling through Mexico, and I started noticing that so many of the cathedrals, the cathedrals, had this same makeup that you're seeing here. This triptych design. And even more to it, but I'm just pointing out, at first I just started knowing, why do they each have like two steeples? I didn't understand that. I didn't notice the triptych door openings or whatever, but I did see, these two pillars, and so many. Just in Guadalajara, there was 3 specific cathedrals that had the same layout like this, but they were different, and they were made at different times in their history, but yet they were still like one another in this, in the way that it was. Just to read this real quick, it says, the discovery on the surface is a seemingly simple one. It is the discovery of a key architectural parallel they all shared, and which is still visible in the ruins of their temples. We can see this parallel in the photo below. This is something I took, but it says in the photo, note how the ancient Egyptians, Mayans, and Indonesians, ancient pyramid buildings, cultures that scholars claim were not connected, all built parallel-looking triptych temples. Okay, so this was something I took off of a different, I think it was the same website, but it was a different picture they used. The point I'm trying to make here is that they use architecture, the symbolism of architecture, that kind of to explain some of their intentions, okay, and some of their associations and loyalties, etc. But it all means something. In fact, I had asked a man. We were taking a little field trip onto an island in Mexico, off of a lake. It was like in the middle of a lake, and we had a guide, and he was a bit of a historian. So I had asked him, as we launched off the little dock area, I looked back and I saw a smaller temple, that looked just like this, the same setup. And I said, I have a question, and I asked him, I told him in Spanish, how come they have like two steeples, and my wife helped me communicate to him. But when she asked him the question there, the man, he kind of looked away. It looked like he felt uncomfortable to answer. And he said something else, and then I said, no, why do that? Why is there two? What do those mean? How come? Because the other temples in town in Guadalajara or whatever, they also had that. So he gave me some kind of explanation how it's good versus evil. One temple, one part represents good, one represents evil. I wasn't satisfied with that, basically, and because of that, I started looking into it, and that's what started this whole journey. Was the architecture. So started moving and God had to start showing me. Here's some other architecture that's around the world that's very symbolic and even more obvious than those temples. You see the City of London, the Washington Monument, and then the Vatican, especially. And you notice these, and I think a lot of people know that they are a phallic symbol. They represent, a penis, and because of that, there's a representation. If you go down the road there on the Vatican and or these other ones, well, actually, I don't know about the City of London. I'm betting that it is. I realized I never looked that one up, but I know Washington. You head down, you see the state capitol, the Vatican. You see the dome, the dome of the church there, and the dome actually represents the womb. So you have the female part and you have the male part, and they're symbolizing something that's going to come together. Okay, this goes real deep and ugly. If you want to research that a little bit more, I would advise it. But those things are the kind of things that you start realizing, wow, they had to make such a great effort to communicate that it's something that's basically driving their agenda. You would think, well, the Vatican's all about church and telling people about Christianity and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, no, not the ones who built this city. They actually laid it out, including Washington, like a pentagram. Washington was laid out like a pentagram on purpose. Pentagram, when you have something in each, corner or whatever of the star, you're basically laying down boundaries for authority, basically saying that whole area is under an authority, and in that case, a demonic authority. And it actually opens up like a portal in the spiritual realm for invitation, invoking of demonic spirits, fallen angels, etc. So it gets pretty deep just going that route. Okay, so here's a picture of the Dome of the Rock. This is from Islam, so that's kind of like what they had at the Vatican, and in Washington. You see, it's not a mistake that our state capitol and so many in the country, I've seen several throughout our country, even the state capitals are designed with this kind of dome, not by accident. It's intentional. It's not like they say, okay, I guess we have to, build a dome because everybody else has one. No, it's to symbolize something. Okay. Same thing with the pyramids, the triptych and here's 3 pyramids. They represent something. No one's going to go through this kind of endeavor to make something. And the pyramids just themselves are phenomenal. It's pretty, I don't know if you've watched any documentaries on it. Your mind will be blown by some of the things. They still don't know how they were made. I think it becomes obvious once you know and understand that there's a lot of technology that we are not privy to, that the government has, and not only that, but there's that knowledge has been around for thousands of years, because the fallen angels, if you were to read the book of Enoch, gave a lot of that information / technology to mankind. And these are the secret books and or just tablets or scrolls or whatever that have been passed out throughout generations in secret to keep away from the average person. And I know it sounds bad, and as we go, I'm going to elaborate a little bit on some of those, but I'm just kind of giving you that. And like I said, the real thing is for you to go and research these things yourselves, because if not, then it's just information. If you seek God in prayer and you research and show him that you have a heart to know him and this information, then God will give it. I have no doubts about that. He wants it out there so that people can be free from its influence. Amen. So, there's a kind of a cool picture here. It's like, a lot of things that we see, just like these buildings, we're not seeing what they really are. We're seeing an image before us that looks like something that it's actually not. And I can't stress that enough. When you start to develop the right sense of these things, and when you start recognizing the fruit, your eyes are going to continue to be enlightened and open, and you're going to start to know God in a whole new way, guaranteed. So what are their ways, though? Okay, they have these ways of doing things. I'm going to point some of them out here. There's these two words, exoteric and esoteric, okay? And I look at it like this tree. The top part of the tree there, above ground, is the exoteric. It's what we normally see, when we look at a tree. We don't even very often consider the roots, unless they're breaking up our plumbing at home or something like that. But then there's the esoteric, the things underneath all that, the things driving it or growing it or making it what it is. Okay. And so we want to be able to see and know the esoteric, the root of sin. Okay. Now put this little meme here. It says, in the game of divide and conquer, we are merely pawns. They keep us busy fighting each other instead of fighting them. Okay, we're talking about their ways, okay, and how they operate, how they get these things done. In Mark 3:25, it says, Jesus said, "And if a house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand." Okay, so that's truth. The Lord is giving us some truth. But they know a lot of these truths. Remember, a lot of times the Pharisees would, give scripture to the Lord or to the disciples or something probably, and they knew the scriptures, but they didn't know the person. And see, I keep wanting to guide you, know the person, because then He'll give you all this by revelation, and it won't be as hard to understand, or you in some ways you won't even have to study as much. You'll recognize the fruit right off the bat. Okay, but so this is a truth here, but let me show you how they do it. Okay, so it says a house, if a house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand. Okay, but what they do is they twist the truth. They twist it and see if they can use it, because if God said that, then they know, hey, well, in that case, if you wanted a house not to stand, what would you do? You would try to cause a division in that house, and thereby having this game that they play, divide and conquer. It's not really a game, but I mean, they use us as pawns in their game, but they endeavor to divide us. They're always causing division. All over the world, all these government leaders, that are in on that stuff, they know a lot of times for them to stay in power, they have to keep the house divided in various ways in order to keep themselves in a position of power. How does it work? How does it look or play out? In Romans 16:17, look at what it says. The Apostle Paul writes, "Now I urge you, brethren, note those who cause divisions and offenses contrary to the doctrine which you learned, and avoid them." He's mentioning the people that cause divisions. Take note of them. Don't just ignore these people. When you see, I've never seen a president other than Obama speak so much divisive words. Never have seen that before. And I mean, I've been paying attention to our presidents since Bill Clinton's time. Saw the hatred. I actually joined the military around that time. So, I've gone through quite a few on them. But but never have seen someone be so outright to cause division, to say things that are divisive, without regard for, their words. And I understand, that what that does. And I mean, look, sometimes there's things that, you can't avoid that might be that way. But with that level of authority that he has, to say, in my opinion, such careless words that would definitely cause division is being done on purpose. In Romans, in the next verse, he says this: for such men, these ones that cause division, he's referring to, for such men are slaves, not of our Lord Christ, but of their what? Their own appetites. That's what they're serving, their appetites. And by their smooth and flattering speech, they deceive the hearts of the unsuspecting. I chose a different translation. Notice I put the NASB in this one because I like the word that they use here where it says they deceive the hearts of the unsuspecting. And I'm not telling you to believe every conspiracy. What I'm telling you is to not disregard every conspiracy. Don't ignore it. Ignoring things like that because they're bothersome or troubling or whatever, you're practicing ignorance, and those are the people that are the most prone, I believe, to being deceived. That's what it says here too. It says they're able to deceive the hearts of the unsuspecting. One for ignorance, and the other one's, you don't suspect, that men conspire. People that don't believe there's a worldwide conspiracy have not read their Bibles. There is an absolute worldwide conspiracy. We started off reading it out to you. Mystery Babylon, the kings and the merchants and the rulers of this world are drunk with her, her deception, her fornication, etc. We read Psalms 2 where you see they're plotting a vain thing against God and his people. So they're actually absolutely, serving their own appetites very often and, using us to do it. Okay, so I think most of you, we played that audio earlier from JFK, and I don't know if you know any of his family's history, but apparently, and I had read about this in books too, but his dad was a rum runner in the South areas, but during Prohibition, and so he's actually had associations with the mafia apparently. So the reason why I bring it up is because he obviously knew and had some knowledge of those kinds of powers, those kinds of people. Mafia, by the way, that's especially the Italian mafia, but they're also part of those secret societies. They do a blood ritual, just like a lot of these other ones. They take secret oaths, and they, put those things before everything else. Okay. So there's a picture of JFK. Now here's a picture of JFK Jr., his son, with President Trump, or at that time, Donald Trump. I wanted to make mention of that because, the same way I'm connecting the dots, you see what the people who they associate with is important. If you saw me, frequenting, a strip club, you would think something easily, what am I doing there, But if you saw me always around strippers, you would even think maybe more. You would even think more worse of me, like what kind of lifestyle as a pastor am I living, when those are the people I hang out with. If I'm not ministering to them, that would be different. But if I'm just hanging out with them, the point I'm just making is like when I see this kind of picture, and look, Donald Trump has been popular for years, ever since I was a kid. He's always been popular, and I never saw hatred for him until this, until he ran for president, and that was only after, there was almost like the Democrat Party was pushing for him, because he was demolishing all the other Republican candidates. But once he was in that position, they were out to get him. And, he's a fighter type, so he put up a fight, and it continues to do that. But I bring that up because, like I said, it's a little bit comforting for me when I think of him that he had a close relationship with JFK Jr. and possibly, you know, had some type of relationship. I'm not sure of the time frame, but with his dad, you know, he might have been a little kid too, but maybe, you know, at some point might have, you know, had some kind of interaction with his family and, you know, people, you know, associated with them. So either way, you know, this is the same thing I look at when I look at the enemy and I see all their associations. I know there's a lot of pictures with Trump with just about anybody and everybody, but, you know, and we can't always put too much value in the pictures. I mean, you know, but if you know they're friends, that's a little bit different. If just because they took a picture with somebody doesn't necessarily mean, you know, much. It doesn't have to anyways. So you have to look at a lot of different things, and that's my advice, you know. And from what I understand, they actually had a good friendship. There's other pictures if you want to look those up as well. So, you know, as far as President Trump goes, you know, I like what I see him doing. There's a lot of things I see that are actually aimed at this group of people, these secret societies, these Illuminati, deep state actors that have a different agenda. Remember what one of the things that Adam Weishaupt had wrote was that they wanted to eliminate patriotism. You know, they have to do that in order to get people away from their specific, you know, country that they are loyal to. They have to cut that loyalty, and patriotism is the opposite, you know, of what they want. They don't want people to be proud for one country. They want people to be, you know, globalist type